Good evening. In every forgotten corner of Brazil, under the silver cloak of a full moon, ancient whispers come alive. Stories of shadow creatures, hybrid beings that walk among us, emerge from folklore to become a real terror. What I will tell you today is a disturbing account, which leads us to question whether what was once legend is not, in fact, attacking again. In the heart of a winding valley in Pernambuco, nestled among craggy mountains and crystal-clear streams, lies the small and peaceful town of Serra Azul, a place where life moves slowly and traditions are passed down from generation to generation with almost sacred reverence. Among the oldest and most persistent of these traditions is the legend of the werewolf of the Serra. The elders say that, on full moon nights, a horrifying creature, half man, half wolf, emerges from the depths of the dense forest surrounding the town. It doesn't just seek prey, it seeks, according to the tales, something more. Carlos, a 28-year-old agronomist, had moved to Serra Azul only a year ago, drawn by the opportunity to work on a local reforestation project. Coming from the capital, he was a man of science, pragmatic and skeptical, and the werewolf stories amused him. Country folk tales, he used to laugh, while the older residents shook their heads in disapproval. He lived in a small, isolated house on the outskirts of town, with a large backyard that bordered the forest. It was the peace he sought. That Friday night, the sky was clear, and the full moon, enormous and bright, cast an almost supernatural light over the landscape, transforming the shadows of the trees into ghostly silhouettes. It was a perfect night for a walk to the local bakery, where Carlos usually bought fresh bread for the next morning's breakfast. He put on his headphones, started his rock playlist, and set off, whistling a carefree tune. As he walked down the main street, which gradually turned into a dirt road further from the houses, Carlos noticed something strange. The air was heavy, dense, and an unusual silence hung over the town. There were no barking dogs, no chirping crickets, no croaking frogs, habitual nighttime sounds he had grown accustomed to. Only the sound of his own footsteps and the rhythm of the rock in his ears. A sense of discomfort began to grow in his chest. He tried to ignore it, attributing it to his imagination, but the shiver that ran up his neck was undeniable. As he approached the bakery, which was a little further down, Carlos noticed that the lights were off, which was unusual for that hour. He looked to the side and saw that the neighbors' houses also had their lights off and windows closed. A sense of isolation, that he was the only one on the street, overwhelmed him. He took off his headphones, and the silence became deafening, broken only by the faint rustling of the wind in the tree leaves. Carlos decided something was wrong. The bakery wasn't open, and the atmosphere was too strange to ignore. He turned to go back home, quickening his pace. That's when he heard it, a sound, a heavy dragging, as if something immense and clumsy was moving among the trees, parallel to the road, inside the forest. It wasn't a small animal. The sound was accompanied by a low, guttural growl that seemed to vibrate in the very earth beneath his feet. His heart pounded. He tried to convince himself it was just a stray ox, or perhaps a wild boar, but the sound didn't fit. He began to run, his body in a panic, his eyes sweeping the darkness of the forest, trying to discern any shape. The dragging and growling intensified, keeping pace with him, as if the creature was toying with him. He could feel the presence. He couldn't see it, but he felt its red, hungry eyes fixed on him. Carlos ran down the main street, which now seemed endless. His lungs burned, and his legs ached. But fear was a powerful fuel. He stumbled a few times, but got back up, terror propelling him forward. The sounds behind him were closer, clearer. He could hear the sound of claws scraping the asphalt in some places, and a foul stench of decaying flesh and something wild invaded his nostrils. Home lights, brief relief, then despair. The door of his house, which once seemed an invitation to peace, was now the only barrier between him and the unknown. He threw himself against the door, pushed it open, and entered, locking it with the bolt and key. Inside, gasping and trembling, Carlos leaned against the door, trying to catch his breath. The silence in the house was even more terrifying than the noise outside. He could hear his own heart pounding in his chest. Suddenly, a loud thud hit the door, making it shake violently. Then, deep dragging scratches scored the wood, accompanied by a growl that made the walls vibrate. The creature was outside, right at his door. Carlos ran to the living room window, which overlooked the backyard, hoping to see something. The full moon illuminated the garden, but there was nothing. Only the shadows of the trees, dancing in the wind. But the sounds at the front door continued, each knock stronger than the last, each scratch sharper. He huddled on the floor, covering his ears, wishing it would end. He didn't want to see it, but the fear of being seen, of being found, was even greater. The terror lasted what felt like hours. The banging on the door gradually subsided, turning into lighter scratches, then a dragging sound that slowly moved away, disappearing in the direction of the forest. Finally, silence returned, a heavy and oppressive silence. But now, with the promise of dawn, Carlos remained huddled on the floor until the first rays of sun began to lighten the room. He got up, his legs still shaky, and shuffled to the door. With trembling hands, he unlocked it and opened a small crack. The sunlight bathed the entrance, revealing the marks. Deep claw marks tore through the solid wood of the door, some so deep they had penetrated the structure. The backyard ground was disturbed in places, with grass torn up and dirt scattered. A residual foul odor lingered in the air, almost imperceptible now, but it turned his stomach. He walked to the backyard, looking at the forest. The trees seemed to observe in silence. He noticed that the barbed wire fence separating his property from the forest was bent in some places, as if something large and heavy had passed through it effortlessly. And, on one of the fence posts, there was a tuft of dark, almost black fur, caught on the wire with a reddish sheen. He dared not touch it. Carlos went back inside the house, closed the door, and sank onto the sofa, exhausted. His skepticism had vanished, replaced by a cold, deep terror. He had felt, heard, and seen the marks of the inexplicable. He called his boss and asked for a few days off, without giving many details, just that he needed to resolve some personal issues. The story of the midnight creature in Caninde, which he had dismissed as folklore, now echoed in his mind with a chilling truth. He hadn't seen the werewolf, but he knew it had been there, at his door, in his house, and most terrifyingly, he knew the creature could attack again. Carlos was never the same. He installed taller fences, state-of-the-art security cameras that captured crisp images, and began carrying a hunting knife in his pocket. He learned to respect legends and the darkness of the forest. And on full moon nights, he always made sure all doors and windows were locked, and the lights on, waiting, listening, but never going out again. Because the terror no one saw left an indelible mark on the small town of Serra Azul, a reminder that there are things in the shadows that defy reason and await the right moment to attack again. Good night.